Well, welcome back to the Ropes Family Podcast, episode 92. Fun fact, I was born in 1992, and I am 33. So, for all of you that were born past 1992 and realize how far 33 years ago was, it seems like it wasn't that long ago.
It's kind of hurtful, actually.
But you're not that old.
I know I'm not that old. But
You're only a couple years older.
yeah, 4.
4, that's not that much years.
It's old. It's fine. It's fine.
I ended that music way too early
Nah.
for our entry. Sorry. Anyway, episode 92, we were talking about something I think that's kind of interesting. It's been revolving in my life a little bit. So we've been, the youth committee and we've been kind of trying to talk about the purposes and the plans for the youth group going forward. Just to give us some more direction and to kind of have a better plan. Because over the last couple of years, we've kind of it's been running itself, which has been good. You know, we've seen growth. We've seen kids get baptized. We've seen kids grow in their faith. All good things. We just want to be a little bit more intentional about it. Mm-hmm. And when I first took over youth pastor, this is a crazy stat, 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I became youth pastor, which that's wild to me, at least.
You were just a baby when you took over.
Just a baby.
Yeah.
I was 28 when I started working here.
Young.
Yeah. 28 when I took over. And that seems kind of old, actually, for ministry years.
Oh.
33. I don't know if 33-year-olds are youth pastors. I'm sure there's a bunch of older youth pastors. But I
The
don't
same
know.
one is still at my home church that I grew up at now.
Well, that's
that
good.
was there when I was in high school.
Wow.
So he's real old.
And I guess that's fine.
He was old then.
No, there are lifers in youth ministry, which is a good thing. I think that having people in youth ministry forever is good. I think it's a great thing. But I don't know why I got onto that.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
I was older than
I called you a baby.
I was older than I thought I would be when I felt the call to ministry. Mm-hmm. I was older than I thought I would be when I became an actual on-staff minister person. Because I was licensed in the ministry. I was licensed when I was 18. 2 days out of high school, my church was like, we'll license you in the ministry. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go right into it. I'm going to be this guy. You know, I'm going to be a youth pastor. And I was like, I'm 28. 10 years after that, I'm on staff. So it's funny that I just was older than I thought I would be. But looking back, if I was on staff, if I was in some sort of vocational ministry before I was 28, I would not have been a good.
Yeah.
I was not spiritually mature enough. I was not actually mature enough at all. You know, and so I wouldn't have been able to handle it. You know, and God knew that. I think I've shared that on this podcast before. God knew that. 28-year-old Josh could maybe handle it.
It's crazy that his plans and our plans are so different.
Yeah. You think I'm like, okay, I'm going into ministry. That's my plan the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to be whatever. And
he said you are, but you're not right now.
Wait about 10 years.
Yeah, not at this moment.
10 years. Yeah. So, 18-year-olds that are listening to this podcast, just to realize that sometimes things happen a little slower than you think. 33-year-olds listen to this podcast, realize that things happen a little slower than you think. But anyway.
Okay, now back to topic.
We're way off topic.
We're back.
So anyway, back to purposes. So there's this book called The Purpose-Driven Youth Ministry by Doug Fields. And he talks about in this, I don't think this is his idea necessarily. I think he took it and adapted it to youth ministry from whoever his pastor was. I can't remember. Some big church in California. I don't know.
I have it on my Kindle. I could read it.
Yeah. So anyway, he kind of adapted it to youth ministry. They basically point out 5 purposes or 5 functions or purposes of church or ministry of the church, basically. And those 5 things are evangelism, worship, discipleship, fellowship, and ministry. And so when I first took over youth pastor 6 years ago, I didn't have any direction. I didn't know what, and Donovan gave me this book. He said, read it and kind of see what you think. And so I read it, and I started trying to give everything this purpose, trying to figure out how to do all of these things in our context, how to apply, how to evangelize in our context, worship in our context, disciple in our context, and so on, fellowship and ministry. And I think I did, when we did it, I think it worked good. I think it was a good plan. But I think like I said, we kind of got on where it was running itself, and some of the things, in our ministry kind of fell to the wayside. And in the book, I reread it when we were trying to do this in the youth group. I reread it, and in the book it said to grade your ministry in these certain aspects, and to kind of be real about it. Don't give yourself all A's, because maybe you might do this, but how well
5
are you?
stars.
How well are you doing these things? And it'll help you see what you need to work on, what you need to improve on.
And actually, since you told me that, I've been looking at my own ministry. So
yeah, and I think this is good. I think it's a good way to just evaluate and give each thing a purpose and plan to do this. And I don't know if they've done this. I'd really like to see this in like a family setting. How to do these things in a family setting. Looking at your family as a church and doing these certain things as that. I'm sure they have a book already. I just haven't read it.
you could write it.
Purpose-driven family or something. I'm sure I think I've heard that title before. Purpose-driven family, purpose-driven life. Yeah, purpose-driven life. So purpose-driven life. That's where Doug Field got this. Doug Field's got this was
By Rick Warren.
Rick Warren. Yeah, there you go. Look you there. So yeah, Rick Warren was the pastor and then Doug Field was the youth pastor at this church.
Okay.
And so I think that's how all this works. I could be wrong.
Sounds good to me.
But anyway, I don't know where we were. So grading ourselves, and it kind of helped me going forward see what areas that we need to focus on, to improve, and areas that we do pretty well at, as far as the ministry as a whole. And then I sent that to Ben. Ben is on the youth committee. Ben is also your husband. If you didn't know that, Courtney.
I did.
I sent that to Ben, and, we've just kind of been bouncing ideas back and forth. I think I've talked to Ben more on the phone than I've talked to him in person, which is fine. I love that.
He likes to talk on the phone.
I love to talk on the phone too. I wish people would call me all the time.
He calls me and I'm like, that was a text. You could have sent a text.
No,
Okay.
call me on the phone. I like to talk to people on the phone. That's why I listen to podcasts. I just like to hear people talk.
I listened to 2 this week, by the way.
2 podcasts?
I'm growing up.
Ours? Did you listen to ours?
No.
Oh, that's okay. That'd be weird to listen to.
I don't want to hear my own voice.
Yeah.
Listen to everybody else's.
That's good. Anyway, so we've just kind of been bouncing ideas back and forth. What we see, what we don't see. What are some ways that we can implement certain things? One thing, and I'll share this. One thing that I think the youth ministry hasn't excelled at is, I guess I should go through exactly what all of those are. I'll say we haven't excelled very well in the ministry part. Not the ministry as a whole, but equipping the youth group for ministry to go out and do the things. And I'll kind of read through what each one of these are. So worship is to worship, to sacrifice one's individual desires, to give up stuff to worship God and to honor God. Discipleship is learning to be more like Christ, like sanctification, learning the Bible, understanding the Bible, being more like Christ, being a follower of Christ. Evangelism is sharing the good news of Christ, teaching people how to, or us as a ministry, sharing the gospel with people, and then having that do that, keep going. And then fellowship is, sharing and gathering together, iron sharpens iron, which you can get that out of discipleship too. And then ministry is operating as the hands and feet of Jesus, going out and doing church, going out and doing those things. And I think that was just one of the things that we needed to improve on, a couple of them, but ministry was probably the one that we needed to, that I didn't really even think about. And the problem with when we don't provide opportunities for the students or the people in the ministry to participate in the ministry is it just becomes an input. There's no output of the ministry. There's internal growth. The term is getting fed. But then you don't take that and go anywhere else. And so that's one of the things that the committee and I are working on we need to work on is how to do that.
I was about to ask you what that looks like.
Find more things to do that. And it may just be as simple as, plugging the youth into actually running stuff in the service, youth sharing testimony, their youth leading worship, the youth running the computer, giving them tasks that are within that, giving them ownership in it. And then that could also look like going and mowing some old lady's yard, or, you've used the ladies and the people in the parking lot a lot.
I make friends all the time.
Helping people in the grocery store, things like that is, just charging them and equipping them to do that. Or even at school, trying to be the hands and feet of Jesus at the school, and that's one thing that, I just didn't grade us very high on. And I think that kind of came out of just me not paying attention to that aspect because the others were kind of, but it's an essential purpose, and I kind of, a couple of the things that I'm talking to Ben about is, evangelism. You start with evangelism, you got to teach people, they got to know Jesus.
Right.
And then discipleship. And then both of those things lead to ministry, worship, and fellowship. Those three things, or those two things first, lead to the other three. But that doesn't mean those other three don't take a back seat,
Right.
One thing that I thought we did really well is worship. And then and it's not just because I lead the worship, but I think it's just because we do a decent enough job at it.
I think we struggle.
Yeah,
there.
there's and this kind of goes into, we're all equipped to do different things. I can sing good, but that doesn't make me necessarily a good worship leader. But I think worship is a lot different than what we view worship as today. But like I said, it's a sacrifice, and we need to model that sacrifice in our worship somehow. Just because I graded ourselves high on that one doesn't mean that we're the best at it. There's room for improvement in all of these.
Right.
I didn't get an A+ or anything. But part of another thing that I wanted to point out is this book was written 20 years ago, something like that, 25 years ago, something, I don't know. But I was a youth pastor friend of mine was just voted as a senior pastor of another church, and I don't know what this is. I don't know why I like to watch youth. I like to watch people get voted into their new positions.
Okay,
it's weird. And anyway, he, in his view of a call sermon, he talked about these 5 purposes, and he would say, in our church, we will be a church that worships, we will be a church that evangelizes, we will be a church that fellowships, that disciples. And he kind of laid out each of those things. And I thought it was really cool to just charge the church from the beginning. Hey, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it. And he used a passage in Acts to and so does Doug. I think Doug Fields, the guy in the book, he uses the Great Commission to biblically back it, but and I'm not sure if he uses Acts. I don't remember, but this other guy used Acts, and I thought it was very, very interesting, and I thought it was a good thing that we can, have something to intentionally think about while we do these ministries, and we take a break during the summer, we just don't meet on Wednesdays, but during the summer. And so this would be a good time to make sure we have things in place to make sure we have a vision, a purpose for each thing that we do and why we do the things that we do. Instead of we do it just because we can, this is the space we have and to fill it up. And I think that could be a problem with a lot of, we do these things, but we don't know why we do them. And I think showing the purpose of why we do these things, I think it's a good thing.
I agree.
Amen, sister.
No, I've been thinking about this a lot too, and I struggle with Wednesday nights because, everyone knows I will have 35, 40 kids that never attend church any other time. And so I feel, which this is going to sound terrible, and I'm saying it anyway, I feel like that's a lot of pressure on me, like to evangelize.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's my whole purpose of Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's other aspects that I'm really missing on Wednesdays.
But and then you kind of have what we just have what we have, right?
Yeah.
We have them here, and so and Wednesday nights for you and for me are probably very much evangelism.
Yeah.
Just because we have a lot of church kids, but we also
we
have
do.
a lot of unchurched kids or under-churched kids, like kids that come but they don't really understand. So and that's okay to have it as that purpose, to recognize, hey, that's what we're doing with this, and that's the purpose of this, and that's okay. We're using this for this purpose.
I think the way for fall, though, that I'm kind of leaning towards is adding some more ministry and having them do some projects and, asking other people for ideas of stuff that they can do to help others too.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to start the fruit of the Spirit in the fall. And so starting out love, there's something we can do for someone. And so I'm really leaning towards that right now. Just getting evangelism is very important. And that is my main goal for Wednesdays, but we can add in some of this other stuff.
Yeah. And I think fellowship is a good one for you.
Oh yeah. We got lots of fellowship going on.
Yeah.
Worship struggles.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just because of what you have.
Yeah.
I think Doug, the author of the book, talks about audiences, but I haven't read too much into that yet. But, or I did a long time ago, and I can't remember.
We tried worship. We have a lot of energy.
Yeah. And
even if the songs are fun, we end up pushing each other and like starting a mosh pit and things. So we've kind of.
And that happens in youth too. It's just part of it, And when you get under church kids or kids that, they don't get it, that's just going to happen, But it takes time and consistency to get through that. As far as for me,
right?
It does drive people crazy, but that's people being people, know. And so you just got to understand like things like that. But yeah, I think that implementing or taking this instead of just inflow, taking it and going out, I think that's a good thing. And in the book, it says to create a purpose statement. And Ben actually helped me with this. He sent me something, where he changed the words, worship, ministry, worship, or evangelism, ministry, worship, fellowship, discipleship. He changed those to spell out ropes instead, whatever that's called. It's not
an acronym.
Acronym, yeah. And so he sent me those, and then I changed the ones he said. And so I think that part of it. So anyway, going forward, we're gonna do it like this. We're gonna view evangelism as reach, ministry as overflow. See what I said? How we take that out. We take ministry out and go. And worship is praise, obviously. And fellowship is engage, be around other people, engage with other people. And then discipleship is shepherd, and ROPES, reach, overflow, praise, engage, and shepherd. Spells ropes. So that was a pretty creative thing that Ben did there. And then so we came up with I did. I haven't shown this to the committee yet. I'll show them tonight.
So you'll have a 55-hour meeting
and
tonight.
We do have a long meeting tonight to talk about all this. But it says FBC Ropes Student Ministry aims to reach our community through the overflow of the gospel in our lives. We offer praise to God through song and surrender, and we engage with fellow believers in faith-building relationships and shepherd students into a life of genuine faith. So, that's
really good.
Yeah, AI
I'm
helped
impressed.
me with that.
Still, I'm impressed.
I think that giving us a purpose, giving us a goal to hit, and I was talking to Donovan in the hallway earlier today, and he said, set the goals so you have something to aim towards. You can't, or do this and see how it goes so you have something to aim towards, and then see if you need to move the target later. Give us something, and I think that that's what this does. Is it helps us, each thing that we do in the ministry, each time that these doors are open, what is the purpose behind it? And it's okay to just have one or two of those purposes,
Well, I'm not afraid to try something, and then if it's a total failure, just to start over, nix it and start over. And so what I'm thinking for the fall, some of this stuff may be, it may just not work at all.
Yeah.
And I'm already planning to be like, after the first Wednesday, go, okay, that was a disaster.
Yeah.
But I think we also have to be willing to step out and do new stuff and try and then go, oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, as long as it has a purpose.
Right, no.
Yeah.
Just trying. I have to switch up my Wednesday nights is my key here. And so I've really been focused on that. And so stuff I say sometimes Ben is like, that's going to be fun for you. I'm like, it's going to work. He's like, we'll see.
He said that a couple times to me on the phone. And he's like, yeah, that's going to...
That's something. So he's like, just be willing to, change. If it doesn't work, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm always like, that was a disaster. Thanks. Yeah. I'm done with that. But I think that's important too.
I think that's something that I'd really, I don't want to say excel, but I'm really good at going with flow.
I'm not.
I can do things without planning 600 or 700 weeks in advance. I can do, if I have a day, we can make it work. Sometimes
that type B personality.
Yeah, whatever that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what Enneagram. So I'm able to do that. Yeah. And I think that's probably played into a little bit of some of the other things, some of the other issues is that I've created for ourselves. But I think that, I'm saying all this, not saying that our youth ministry is unhealthy. I'm not saying that our youth ministry is failing.
Right.
I just want to point these things out so we can understand that what we need to work on, just to see to give more things more purpose, And I think that's a good quality or something good to do to analyze what we're doing and see the problems, so we're not blind to them, and I think that this kind of helped me see what things that we may have been just kind of letting go, and things to implement. Like I said, grading yourself is a good thing. And that's because if you don't recognize the problem, you can't fix the problem. And not saying there was a big problem, just like things,
But nothing's perfect. I mean, it's okay to admit, hey, we've got some, or I'm fine with admitting we got some problems on Wednesdays we've got to fix.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. It's almost it's not necessarily sanctification, but it's just improvement and trying to figure out how to do things correctly.
I talked to a mom. Yes, this is kind of funny, but I talked to her yesterday morning. I woke up our alarms didn't go off or we ignored them, so we woke up at 7:20 yesterday morning. Billy has to be at school at 7:35. We live 8 minutes away. Okay, this was a disaster.
So you made it.
I did not make it anywhere, but I was in this panic rush, yelling at everybody to hurry up, telling Billy to hurry. And I looked down and I have a text message from my mom. And I was like, oh gosh, why did I do something wrong? No, she was telling me how she's seen growth in children's. And she's like, I've seen you change things. I've seen you do so. My kids love it. And she said, and I was just up early drinking my coffee and I was thanking God for stuff. And the children's ministry just came to mind. So I wanted you to know. And I was like, sometimes as ministers, which I'm not saying we need thank you cards, but it's nice to just hear you're doing something right. Because I have failures constantly, or I feel like every Wednesday is a failure. No, not every Wednesday, but sometimes we leave on Wednesdays and I'm like, what just happened other than me griping and telling kids to sit down and telling kids to stop climbing on the roof? And did I do anything? Anything? Yeah. And so when I heard that from her, I was like, okay, man, I can chill.
It is so powerful too. And I got a similar letter a couple days ago. It was so powerful to hear hey, I know that this is hard but let me encourage you. Let me show you what some of the stuff that you've said, how has it impacted our lives? How's it impacted these kids' lives? And it's so fun, God's timing. Yeah. The day before that, I was telling Allison, we meet for lunch most days because Allison's got to feed the baby.
That's so cute.
And so I was so discouraged. I was like, what are we doing? Why is this happening like this? I was being real woe is me. Yeah. And it was a tough time. It was a tough day. I was having a hard day. Yeah. And it's like, does anything that we're doing matter? And obviously I know it does. But does it matter? I was being all up in my feels. I was so I was so sad. I was angry. I had all of the emotions that I don't normally know how to deal with. You know, we talked about anger last week, and I was like, oh, great, here, you know, how to be angry. I don't know how to be angry. I was just angry. And so Alice and I were just talking about things. And then I get a letter just like that, or an email or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, what we're doing here at this church, it matters. You know, he's here helping us, and God's timing is so good. And it changes the whole perspective of my outlook on the whole week. I was like, okay, yeah, you know, what we're doing here is good because God is in it, you know, and that's the goal, is to have God in it, you know, and we want people, that's the whole thing, is I want students, I want their families to love Jesus. I want to point them to Jesus in everything that we do. And each of these 5 purposes help us do that. And so that's the role, that's my goal, you know, that's what I wanted to do. And I just, at that day, a few days ago, I just felt like I had nothing I couldn't figure out why I couldn't do any of that.
Right. Because
I just was blind to it, because the problems that I was creating in my head were in my head. And I didn't know how to solve them. And God said, "Here, it's okay.
Yeah,
we're in this together. You're not doing this by yourself, doofus. You've got this. I'm here with you." And man, God's timing is so powerful. And you know, He uses random people to just help you. And I don't think this person knew that was going to change. Have that much of an impact on my mood, on my day, on my ministry, on my walk with Christ. I don't think that they knew that God was gonna use them that way. And then, so that, I guess that could be a good challenge, is to encourage somebody, you know, because you never know exactly what's gonna happen, you know. And I wasn't trying to get into a pity party, and this has been a long podcast. I didn't realize.
No, sorry, I went off there.
I didn't realize it was going to be that long. I was like, we're just going to get in and get out.
No, I thought about it a lot after you sent it. I was like, there's a lot.
There's a lot here. And so that's what I'm saying. We can't get into everything about this, but I think that just having the people that listen to the podcast know that there's a purpose behind all the things that we do, you know, and we're trying to be intentional about it. Even this podcast, we can, that this is fulfilling one of those things. You know, one of those purposes, maybe a couple of them, just depends on kind of how you do. But so that's what we got. We got anything else?
I don't think so.
You got a family challenge?
Thought it was being encouraging.
Oh yeah, be encouraging, and
go encourage someone. I said it last week, but still, these last 2 weeks of school are tough for everybody.
They are tough on everybody.
Encourage someone. You'll walk around like. We saw each other earlier, and he was like, "You don't look very happy today." Yeah, just encourage someone.
I said that to you?
No, you just said, we needed some joy in this room.
Oh, yeah, I did say that.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, we needed some joy.
Because I was like...
we were both going to have the little...
But just say something to someone.
Yeah.
Say nice something.
All right. All right, that's all we got this week. But we'll talk to y'all later. Thank you guys so much for listening. You got anything else? Are you about to read something?
Nope.
Oh, okay, sorry. You pulled up your phone.
No. I was reading all those texts we got.
Oh, yeah, we did get a lot of text messages. All right, we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.